I came for games. That's the part that still sounds honest when I say it out loud. I had a free afternoon, a half-working controller, and no real plan beyond killing time until evening. If I'm being precise, I came because my apartment felt too quiet and my phone kept lighting up with nothing important. Games felt like noise I could control. The place was a small repair-and-play shop wedged between a dry cleaner and a bakery. Consoles stacked behind glass. Old posters peeling at the corners. The kind of place that smelled faintly like dust and coffee that had been reheated one time too many. I stepped in, and the bell over the door rang louder than it needed to, announcing me to no one. Then she spoke. "Give me 1 second." Her voice came from behind the counter, calm, unhurried, not apologetic, just assured. I stood there holding my controller like it mattered. She finished what she was doing before looking up, wiping her hands on a cloth. Mid-40s, maybe older. Hair pulled back loosely, like she'd stopped caring about impressing anyone a while ago, and it suited her. No rush in her movements. No extra smiles. "What seems to be the problem?" she asked. I started explaining, but halfway through my sentence I realized I was talking too fast. She tilted her head slightly, listening without interrupting, eyes steady on mine in a way that made me suddenly aware of how much I filled silence when I got nervous. When I stopped, she didn't respond right away. She turned the controller over in her hands, pressed a button, frowned, not dramatically, thoughtfully. "Mind if I take a look in the back?" she said. I nodded. Of course. She disappeared through a door that creaked like it hadn't been oiled since the early 2000s. The shop fell quiet again. I wandered, pretending to browse, but my attention kept drifting to the doorway she'd gone through. I told myself it was impatience. It wasn't. When she came back, she set the controller down and slid it toward me. Our fingers brushed, just barely. It wasn't a spark. It wasn't fireworks. It was something quieter, like static you notice only after it's gone. "It's the contact pad," she said. "Easy fix. I can do it today if you're not in a rush." "I'm not," I said too quickly, then corrected myself. Yeah, today's fine." She smiled then. Not wide, not practiced. A small one, like she'd noticed something and decided not to comment on it. While I waited, I sat on a stool near the counter. She worked where I could see her, focused, sleeves rolled just enough to show her wrists. There was a radio playing softly, some song I didn't recognize. Every so often she'd glance up, like she was checking whether I was still there. Each time I was. At one point she asked, "So what do you usually play?" "Mostly stuff I've already finished," I said. "I like knowing how things end." She paused, screwdriver hovering. "That can be dangerous," she said lightly, then went back to work. When it was done, she handed the controller back. "Try it." I pressed a button. It worked. Perfectly. "Thank you," I said. It felt insufficient. She met my eyes again, held the look a second longer than necessary, then nodded. "Anytime." I left with the controller fixed and a strange heaviness in my chest. Outside, the noise of the street rushed back in, but something stayed quiet inside me, stuck on the way her hand had steadied mine, the way she'd said anytime like it didn't mean anything at all. And that was the part one couldn't stop replaying. The second time wasn't an accident. I told myself it was. I needed a game case replaced, or maybe a cable, but I stood outside the shop longer than necessary, watching the reflection in the glass like I might catch myself doing something obvious. The bell rang again when I stepped in. She looked up this time immediately. "You're back," she said. Not surprised. Just noted. "Yeah. You said anytime." She exhaled a soft laugh at that, more breath than sound. I did. The shop was quieter than last time. Late afternoon light slanted through the front window, dust floating in it like it had nowhere better to be. She was rearranging a shelf, stretching slightly to reach the top. I noticed how carefully she moved, like her body had learned where not to rush. "Do you need help?" I asked. She hesitated, just a beat too long. Then, "If you don't mind." I held the shelf steady while she worked. We didn't touch, but we were close enough that I could smell her. Something clean, understated. Soap, maybe. Or just her. She didn't talk much while she worked. When she did, it was practical. Short sentences. Instructions. "You've done this before," she said, watching my hands. "Yeah." Not here, though. She nodded, like that mattered. At one point, a box slipped. I caught it before it hit the floor. She froze, hands still in the air, then slowly lowered it. Her fingers were shaking. Barely, but enough that I noticed. Sorry, she said quickly. Too quickly. Long day. It's fine, I said. You've been on your feet all day, right? She looked at me then. Really looked. Something flickered across her face. Surprise, maybe. Or annoyance at being seen. Most days, she said. We finished in silence. When we stepped back, the shelf stood straight, solid. She brushed her hands together, a nervous habit, I realized. There was a faint smudge of dust on her wrist. Without thinking, I reached out and wiped it away. I stopped halfway. Sorry, I said. I didn't. It's okay, she interrupted. Her voice was softer now. She didn't move away. Didn't move closer either. For a second, neither of us did anything. Then she stepped back, crossing her arms lightly. A shield, but not a wall. You don't have to hang around, she said, not unkindly. I know this place isn't exactly exciting. I don't mind, I said. It's calm. That made her smile again. This one was tired. Real. Calm can be dangerous, she said, echoing herself from before. People start thinking. I watched her hands as she tidied the counter. The way she rubbed her thumb against her ring finger, even though there was no ring there. The way her shoulders slumped when she thought I wasn't looking. When I finally left, she didn't say goodbye right away. Just stood there, watching. I paused at the door, turned back. If you ever need help, I said, I'm around. She nodded once. I know. The bell rang as I stepped out, but this time, the quiet followed me. The third time, it was raining hard enough that the street looked warped, like everything was bending inward. I ducked into the shop more to escape the weather than for any reason I could explain without lying. The bell rang, muffled by the storm. She was there alone, sleeves rolled down this time, hair looser than usual. The radio was off. The silence felt deliberate. You're going to start making this a habit, she said. I know, I replied. I'm sorry. She shook her head, faint smile. I didn't say it was a bad one. The rain picked up, drumming against the windows. She locked the door without asking me anything, just flipped the sign to back in 10. Then she paused, hand still on the latch. Do you want some coffee? She asked. It's not great. I'm not picky. She laughed quietly at that. Really laughed. It surprised both of us. We sat at a small table in the back, knees almost touching. The coffee tasted burnt and thin, but it was warm. She wrapped both hands around the mug like she needed the heat more than the drink. You ever feel like you're always almost somewhere else? She asked suddenly. I didn't answer right away. Yeah. She nodded, like that was enough. Outside, thunder rolled low and long. The lights flickered once, then steadied. She exhaled, shoulders dropping. I used to stay late all the time, she said, staring into her cup. Before this place. Before I learned better. Better how? I asked. She hesitated. Her fingers tightened around the mug. About people. Her phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it, then flipped it face down without reading whatever was there. A second later, it buzzed again. This time she didn't touch it. I should take that, she said, but she didn't move. You don't have to, I said. Too quickly. Then softer. I mean, if you don't want to. She looked at me then. The room felt smaller. The rain louder. It's complicated. I'm good with complicated, I said. I wasn't sure if that was true. The phone buzzed a third time. She stood abruptly, pacing a few steps away, running a hand through her hair. When she turned back, her eyes were shiny, not crying, just tired in a way that felt older than me. I shouldn't be doing this, she said. Not accusing, just stating a fact. Doing what? I asked. She stopped in front of me. Too close. I could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, the way her jaw tightened when she was thinking. Letting it feel easy, she said. Thunder cracked overhead. The lights went out. For a second, everything went dark. Then the emergency glow kicked in, soft and amber. She laughed under her breath, startled, and reached out without thinking. Her hand found my arm. Neither of us moved. I could feel her pulse through her fingers. Fast. Mine matched it. I can't, she whispered. I know, I said. And I meant more than one thing. She didn't let go right away. When she finally did, her hand brushed mine. Slow, unintentional, devastating. The lights came back on. The phone buzzed again. She stepped back, creating space like it was something fragile that needed protecting. I stood too, unsure what I was standing up from. At the door, I paused, turned toward her. If I'd said her name then, if I'd taken one step closer, I don't know what would have happened. I didn't, but I thought about it the entire walk home. The fourth time, there was no excuse. No broken controller. No rain. No lingering chore that needed doing. I walked in because not walking in felt worse, and that scared me enough to stop pretending otherwise. She was counting the register when I arrived. The bell rang, and she flinched. Actually flinched, then looked up and exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a while. "You're early," she said. "I can leave." She shook her head. "No, I just wasn't expecting company." That word again. Company. Like we were still doing this carefully. I leaned against the counter. She finished counting, slower than necessary, then slid the drawer shut. The shop felt different, too neat, almost. Like she'd cleaned to avoid thinking. We stood there. Too much space. Too much awareness of it. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't answer right away. She took off her glasses, rubbed the bridge of her nose, then set them down with deliberate care. "I don't know," she said. "And I don't like not knowing." I waited. This time, I didn't rush to fill the silence. She looked at me then, really looked. Not like she was measuring or guarding, but like she was tired of doing both. "This can't keep pretending to be nothing," she said quietly. My chest tightened. "I wasn't pretending." "I was," she replied. "No bitterness. Just honesty. I'm good at it." I nodded, because that felt true in a way I couldn't argue with. She moved around the counter and sat on the stool across from me. Not close. Not far. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers laced tightly together. "I don't understand what this is," she said. "Or why it feels heavy. I've lived long enough to know better than to invite confusion." "And yet," I said, before I could stop myself. "And yet," she echoed, lips pressing together. "Here you are." The air felt thick. Not charged, weighted. Like we were standing underwater, every movement slowed by consequence. "I think about you more than I should," I admitted. My voice didn't sound like mine. "And I don't know what that says about me." Her eyes softened. That was worse than if they'd hardened. "It says you're human," she said. Then, after a pause, "That's not the problem." "What is?" She looked down at her hands. "Unlace them. Lace them again. I don't trust myself not to want this to mean something." I swallowed. "What if it already does?" She looked up sharply, held my gaze, didn't look away this time. "That's exactly what I'm afraid of." We sat there, the radio off, the shop empty, the clock ticking too loudly on the wall. I noticed the faint tremor in her knee, the way her breathing changed when she realized I'd noticed. "I'm not asking for anything," I said. "I just need to know I'm not imagining it." She stood slowly, like standing was a decision she might regret. Came closer. Stopped just short of touching me. "You're not," she said. The words landed harder than a confession. Then she stepped back, creating distance with intention, with effort. Her voice dropped, almost to a whisper. "But knowing that doesn't make this safer." I nodded, because there was nothing else I could do. As I reached the door, she spoke again. I didn't turn around. "If you come back," she said, "it won't be because of games anymore." I paused, my hand on the handle, heart beating too loud. "I know," I said. Behind me, her voice cracked, not loudly. "Just enough. And I don't know if I can survive what that would mean." The fifth time, I almost didn't recognize her. Not because she looked different, but because the guard I'd learned to read wasn't there. She was sitting on the floor behind the counter, back against the cabinet, knees pulled in. The shop was technically open, but the lights were dimmer than usual, like she hadn't decided yet whether the day deserved full brightness. A small cardboard box sat beside her, open. She looked up when I came in. Didn't stand. Didn't tell me I shouldn't be there. "You okay?" I asked, already knowing that wasn't the right question. She gestured to the box. "I was cleaning the back room. Found things I forgot I kept." Inside were old receipts, a cracked phone, a folded sweater that still looked like it belonged to someone else. She picked up the phone, turned it over in her hands. "I don't even remember why I saved this," she said. It doesn't work anymore. But I know what's on it. I sat on the floor across from her without asking. The distance between us felt smaller down there, less official. He used to leave voicemails, she continued. Not because he needed to. Because he wanted proof he'd existed in my day. She laughed once. It didn't reach anywhere important. I never deleted them. Even after he left. Do you still listen to them? I asked. She shook her head. No, I don't need to. Then, quieter, I hear them anyway. There was a photo tucked inside the phone case. She hesitated before handing it to me, like she might change her mind. It showed her years younger, standing beside a man I'd never meet. His arm around her shoulder. Her smile unguarded. Careless. You don't look like that anymore, I said before thinking. She didn't take offense. Just nodded. Neither does he. I looked at the photo again. Do I remind you of him? The question surprised both of us. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes dropped to the floor. Her fingers traced a small crack in the tile. No, she said finally. You remind me of who I was before him. That landed harder than I expected. She stood, brushing dust from her palms. I followed. The air felt different now, not tense, but tender, like something exposed to cold. I didn't plan for you to be this, she said. I thought it would pass. A phase. Curiosity. And now? I asked. And now I catch myself wondering what you'd say about things that don't involve this place. She met my eyes. That's the part that scares me. I nodded. I understood fear that didn't announce itself loudly. She reached for the box, closed it, slid it back under the counter. When she straightened, she was closer than I expected. Not touching. Just there. I don't want to make you a replacement, she said softly. I don't want to be one, I replied. I just want to be me. She studied my face, like she was memorizing something she might need later. Then she lifted her hand, stopped halfway, and let it fall back to her side. That might be the most dangerous option, she whispered. I didn't argue. When I left, she didn't follow me to the door this time. But as the bell rang, I heard her say my name, not loud enough to stop me, just loud enough to stay with me. The sixth time felt like surrender, not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind that happens when you stop arguing with what's already true. It was near closing. The shop lights were on, but the street outside had gone soft and gray, like the day was easing itself out. She didn't look surprised when I came in, just tired, open in a way that made me lower my voice without thinking. You don't have to stay, I said, because it felt important to give her an exit. She locked the door instead. I know, she replied, but I want to. That was it. No speech, no careful framing, just a decision placed gently between us. We sat on the floor again, backs against opposite sides of the counter this time. Not facing each other, sharing space without making it a performance. The radio stayed off. The clock kept ticking. Life continued to be inconveniently normal. I keep waiting for the part where this becomes a mistake, she said after a while. And? I asked. And it hasn't, she said. That doesn't mean it won't. But pretending it already is, that's been worse. I leaned my head back, staring at the ceiling tiles. I don't want to rush you. I know. She paused. That's part of why this feels safe. Or safer than it should. Her foot brushed mine. Not an accident. Not a test either. Just contact. We both noticed. Neither of us moved away. I'm not good at this, she said quietly. Starting over. Letting someone see me when I'm not put together. I'm not trying to fix you, I said. I don't even think you're broken. She smiled at that. A real one. Small. Grateful. That's a dangerous thing to say to someone my age. Why? Because I might start believing you. We fell into another stretch of silence. It wasn't awkward anymore. It felt earned. Like we'd done enough talking for one lifetime. She shifted closer, shoulder brushing mine. I felt the warmth of her through fabric, the slight tremor she tried to hide when she exhaled. I didn't turn to face her. Didn't force anything forward. After a minute, she rested her head against my shoulder. Just there. No rush. No apology. I stayed still, afraid that moving might break something fragile. My hand rested on the floor between us, fingers curled. After a moment, after several, she reached out and placed her hand over mine. Not gripping, just covering it. Skin to skin. Her thumb moved once, then stopped. This doesn't fix my past, she said softly. I know. And it doesn't promise anything. I know that too. She nodded, like she was checking things off a list she'd been carrying for years. Then she leaned in further, forehead resting against my arm, eyes closed. But it feels honest, she whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We stayed like that until the clock clicked into closing time. Until the world outside moved on without us. When we finally stood, she didn't pull her hand away right away. At the door, she looked at me, not guarded, not afraid. Come back tomorrow, she said. Not as a question, not as a request. I nodded. I'm telling this from a distance now, not because it ended, but because some things only make sense once they've settled into your life quietly. The shop is still there. Same bell. Same faint smell of reheated coffee and dust. But it doesn't feel like a place I wandered into anymore. It feels like somewhere I belong, at least for now. We never named what happened between us. Not that night. Not the next morning when I came back and she handed me a mug without asking how I'd take it. Not even weeks later, when sitting together after closing became routine instead of loaded. What changed wasn't dramatic. It was small, steady shifts. I stopped pretending I was just passing through my own life. I noticed how often I used humor to avoid saying what mattered. I learned that staying, really staying, takes more courage than chasing something new. She changed too. Not in the way people expect. She didn't become softer or suddenly fearless. She became more honest about when she was tired, about when she needed quiet, about when she needed me to sit beside her without trying to solve anything. Sometimes we talk about the past. Sometimes we don't. She still has the box under the counter, but it doesn't own the room anymore. It's just a box now. A chapter, not a sentence she's stuck repeating. There are days the age difference feels invisible. There are days it doesn't. We don't pretend otherwise. We let it exist without letting it decide things for us. That might be the most adult thing either of us has ever done. Love, I've learned, isn't always fireworks or certainty. Sometimes it's choosing not to leave when things get quiet. Sometimes it's letting someone rest their head on your shoulder without wondering what it means next. We still don't rush. We still don't promise what we can't guarantee. But when the shop closes and the lights dim, we sit together on the floor like we did that first night, hands touching, breath slowing, the world doing its thing without demanding answers from us. If I came for games, I stayed for something harder to explain. I stayed because she saw me when I wasn't trying to be impressive, because I learned that love doesn't always arrive loud. It sometimes waits until you're finally still enough to notice. And if this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?